Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Qihang Zhang, an international student from China. And today I also want to talk about a very serious topic. I want to talk about the westernized definition of economic development. Because in science, my major is international development, so it's related to my major. And basically, because of this, the seriousness of this topic, so this presentation is basically a literature review. I think it is crucial to define development appropriately because the definition of development shapes the strategies and policies in the developing countries, especially for us, the students from the developing countries, except you. Yeah, you are not. And the issue is even more important. And generally, nowadays, increasing evidence indicates that some mainstream definition of development may involve the political tendency and interest. Admittedly, Western countries set good examples for the developing countries. For example, they effectively reduced the poverty rate in the past 200 years. Since there are still massive amounts of areas undergoing the starvation and turbulence, as recently the picture of drowned Syria boy has highlighted the urgency of economic development. So the Revalium addressed that understanding paths of Western countries against poverty should be the top priority of the developing countries. However, through the retrospection of the thoughts of Aristotle, we observed Western countries actually have exerted political influence to the developing countries under the cover of economic investment, which is evidence that Western countries taught their definition of economic development to the third world. So, aimed at this phenomena, the left wedge, an economist in the States, summarized the definition and policies of development had been generated mainly in Western minds from within the experience of Western societies with Western interest at heart. And naturally, the following part is whether the Western definition of economic development works for falling behind countries or not. Specifically, I want to talk about whether the development experience of Western countries in the 19th and 20th century will help the backward countries develop or not. There is a paper of a sociologist in the States. He addressed that general development experience of advanced countries may generate a few points worth learning based on the prerequisite that catching up countries should consider their pre-industrial culture and nature endowment. Furthermore, another economist in the States, Rostow, put forward the stages of economic growth, to some extent encouraging the developing countries to follow the footprint of the advanced countries. Though this theory provides clear economic paths for the backward countries, I find three shortcomings of this theory. So the first one is the stages of growth, economic growth, ignores the existence of basic business cycle. And the second one is that this theory overgeneralizes the stages of growth without considering any exceptions, such as Singapore. And the third one is there are only 6 stages in this theory. And in such case, the future of advanced countries is still confusing. And not only this theory, but also the Kuznets curve, which is also a classic theory in economic field, is challenged by credible data and a comprehensive method. So, based on the above analysis, I think, in my opinion, only by analyzing specific factor endowment and learning the economic lessons from developed countries can developing ones, by virtue of technological backwardness advantages, achieve faster economic growth. So that's my speech. That's my literature review. Thank you very much. Yeah,
So,
I expect that.
actually, your presentation is very thoughtful. So you were able to make us understand the basics. I think. I mean, given the limitation in time, the basics of your approach. If I understood well, please correct me if I'm wrong. The main argument of the differences between the way the Westernized society organizes its affairs abroad in developing countries, it's somehow considered as not as optimal, take into consideration thinking of what happened in the past during the colonial periods of 19th, 19th century. Well, still I understand this is part of the history, so we have to consider. But on the other hand, you didn't explain to me actually, or maybe I didn't understand it well. You didn't explain to me what's your approach, what the elements of your what are the elements of your approach that are able in contrast that are able to treat this question. I mean, you mentioned.
What's the alternative?
What's the alternative actually? What's the better solution you have?
I think the experience of advanced countries have some meaning for the developing countries, but I think the most important element to develop or to make the development policies for the developing countries is to combine their own factor endowment and pre-industrial culture, and I think this element, this part is the most important instead of the experience of advanced countries.
Other questions?
Just a short comment. During your presentation, you pointed out the Kuznets curve.
Yeah.
And I think, empirically speaking, I think it's that the assumption and the effectiveness is still valid, I think, but are you arguing that it doesn't apply only to the developing countries, or is it totally ineffective to whole countries?
Actually, the Kuznets curve is only valid in the panel data instead of time series data. It means that if we
cross-section data.
Yeah, cross-section, it means also we add the time series data and the panel data. And also nowadays, a lot of experts to use data to prove the Kuznets curve, and they can't prove the Kuznets curve. Maybe they can reach a U curve instead of inverse U curve.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.